The CBD, we've talked to Abubakar Abdullahi just to get the minds of Kenyans. So right now, I'd like us to cross over to a city center studio and talk to Jared Okello, who is the Nyando Member of Parliament, just to try and get his mind also concerning the 16% VAT. And Mheshimiwa, you're one of the members of Parliament who has actually opposed President Uhuru Kenyatta's proposal of 8%. And you want it postponed to 2020?
Thank you, Brenda. Yes, this is not a new phenomenon to begin with. This is a matter that came up in 2013 as a result of some IMF, precautionary loan arrangement with the Kenyan government. It was premised on the fact that Kenya was going to go commercial production of oil in relation to the exploration of oil in Turkana. So the expectation then was that once we do oil at a commercial level, the prices of oil were going to substantially come down, and even though a VAT of 16% could be levied, that wasn't going to really affect Kenyans to a larger degree. But we are here today. That exploration of oil still has remained a mirage, and therefore President Uhuru Kenyatta feels that the obligation to IMF and other breastwood institutions must be met. That is why we are here today. Now, in 2013, the then Parliament pushed it forward by 3 more years, and that was 2016. Now, in 2016, we also heard about the need to have it implemented, but it was again vacated by 2 more years, and that is where we are today. Well, what we are saying is that as Parliament, taking cognizance of the fact that Kenyans are suffering out there, most of them are not in a position to acquire essential items because of the inflation that the country is being subjected to at the moment. We are saying it can as well be moved by 2 more years, as it has happened before, so that the prices of these essential commodities as they are today can remain. Now, on the 1st of September midnight, when the new oil pricing was implemented, prices of petroleum, for instance, moved to 127 a litre from about 109. And that gigantomous move and leap had adverse effects on the welfare of the Kenyan people. So as Parliament, because the ball was in our court, with the finance bill, we said let it be scrapped, let it be moved forward until such a time that the economy shall behave. But, the 1st of September, the Treasury went ahead together with the Energy Regulatory Commission to have that levy be put onto the petroleum products. So Kenyans are suffering, and when the president came back from his trip in China, he amended it by reducing it from 16 to 8%. But as parliamentarians, we are saying nothing has been reduced. We scrapped it to 0, but he moved it up by 8%. So the problem is not, the president moving it from some figure to 8%. It is as parliamentarians putting it at 0 rated, then he moves it to 8%. So what we are saying is, when it is brought for debate tomorrow and on Thursday for adoption, we are going to scrap it, hopefully in its entirety, so that Kenyans cannot be subjected to carry a burden that does not really belong to them. And we are saying other austerity measures can be employed so that other avenues of raising avenues can be found, Brenda.
Honorable Kello, just to, before we continue this conversation, I'd like us to listen to what President Uhuru Kenyatta had to say, because it's drawn a lot of mixed reactions also from your fellow members of parliament. Of course, your proposal, some section of members of parliament, is to scrap the controversial Finance Bill 2018 altogether. But what is the way forward? How will we raise the deficit, the 70 billion shillings? So President Uhuru Kenyatta made some proposals on how the country might raise that deficit. So let's just listen into what the president had to say on Friday concerning the controversial Finance Bill 2018.
The purpose of this tax was simple. We have to pay for the new constitutional order, as well as the public services on which Kenyans depend alike. These cost money. Further delay in the implementation of the tax would compromise our ability to deliver basic services to Kenyans and to maintain the trajectory of our development.
That bill, as you have sent it, we are going to send it back to you in the State House. And whether you sign it or not, it will become a law. We are saying zero application of VAT on petroleum products because it will affect the cost of living.
VAT lazima ikuje chini mpaka zero. Kwa sababu wali yale maneno yana happen pale Nairobi. Nyinyi watu mara boda boda, nyinyi ndio mnaumia. Na tunajua boda boda Migori County ni 90%. Apart from hii sugar cane, kila kitu inaharibika. Kwa hivyo mimi kama mbunge kutoka Migori County hapa niko na makinyamita na niko na wabunge wengine wengi kusema kwamba VAT must come down to zero.
All right, Honorable Kelly, you heard what the president had to say when it comes to some of his proposals, and of course what your colleagues have also responded to the proposals. So what is the way forward? If we scrap this VAT altogether, how are we going to raise the deficit?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Brenda. Firstly, I didn't listen to what the president said. For whatever reason, the sound wasn't coming out clearly. But, you know, there are many other austerity measures that can be employed in order that the country can generate the required revenue. Number one, we have to, you know, make a resolution as a country that corruption must be taken to the back burner. The report that has consistently come from the Office of the Auditor General talks about pilferages and misuse of public monies that make our country lose so much money. For instance, we got reports that between 400 to 600 billion shillings are always lost in corrupt deals. So what we are then saying is that we have to try as much as we can to seal loopholes so that this kind of pilferages will not be there. Number two, we have you know, lots of duplication of roles from the county government and the national government. You know of officials, for instance, in the health department, where we have health officers working under the county government, and then you have a similar position held by the Ministry of Health from the national government. So we also have to eradicate these kinds of duplication so that we can save on some monies. We have to carry out a comprehensive audit of the number of people who actually work for the government, because you've always heard about the ghost workers who, you know, earn salaries and you can never place a bet on them. So what we are saying is a very thorough, you know, audit must also be carried out so that we can know with certainty how many indeed work for any level of government, be it the county government or the national government. So these are critical issues. Of course, again, you have unconstitutional officers, such as the chief administrative secretaries, positions that were created by President Uhuru Kenyatta, positions that attract a lot of budgetary allocations, yet you cannot place with certainty or with exactitude what kind of roles they play for this country. These unwarranted officers must be scrapped so that the country can also save on some monies. Then we also have to look at avenues, ways of creating wealth, not just using what has been created. We know agriculture and tourism are the key areas where we earn our revenue. Let us channel monies to perpetuating the well-being of the agricultural docket, not defense, like, they have put so much money in under the defense department, yet this is not a country at war with anybody or even at war with itself.
Okay.
Let's look at security, for instance. They are procuring new uniforms. They are checking them out of their homes so that they can go into homes that they will be paying at the end of the month. A country that is experiencing a cash crunch doesn't do that.
Okay, Mheshimiwa Okello, I've heard your sentiments. You're saying there's duplication of roles and constitutional offices and, of course, ways of creating money. Generating more funds for the country. But just before you continue with your sentiments, I'd like to bring your colleague, Caleb Kositany, who is a member of parliament for Soi, who is actually supporting President Uhuru Kenyatta's proposals and is joining us via way of phone. Mheshimiwa Kositany, kindly, why are you not opposing the president's proposals? Because you seem to be supporting the proposals. Honorable Caleb Kositany, Member of Parliament for Soi, if you can hear me clearly, you are among 14 members of Parliament who seem to be supporting President Uhuru Kenyatta's proposal. So the question is, you are supporting it, yes, but there's some section of members of Jubilee Party who seem to be opposing the proposals. All right, it seems that we cannot hear Honorable Caleb Kositany, Member of Parliament of Soi, cannot get his very loud and clear. Of course, we shall be getting a hold of him later on once we shall get him online. And just to continue this conversation with Nyando, Member of Parliament, just to tell us more about it. Honorable Okello, you were talking about duplication of offices and constitutional offices being there and just trying to look for ways of raising these funds. But the other question is, you're opposing these proposals, yet your party leader, Raila Odinga, is applauding President Uhuru Kenyatta's decision of 16% to 8%. So as a party, what are you going to do? Because as much as you're going to be having a parliamentary group tomorrow, you have to take into consideration your party leader's sentiments.
Well, I'm not privy to any parliamentary group meeting that will be convened tomorrow, because no official or informal communication to that effect has been brought to my direction. But what I can confirm is that Jubilee adherents have been summoned to State House for some dress down and to be, read the Rights Acts, such that when they go against the drains and against the expectation of the president, then they will face the wrath. And this is not a new thing that has happened to them. Each time the government is confronted with an issue, they have a penchant of summoning members of parliament allied to them to State House for such kinds of treatments. But suffice to say, the interest of the Kenyan people override any other interest. We do not serve at the behest of the presidency or of the president. We serve courtesy of the Kenyan people. And in any event, Parliament is not an appendage or a department of State House. These are three arms of government that must function independently. And that independence must be in line with the tenets of our Constitution. Our work, in line with Article 95, Sub-Article 2 of the Kenyan Constitution, is to legislate and look at the concerns of the Kenyan people. And this is one of those fundamental concerns that Kenyans are raising. So what we are saying is, with or without parliamentary group meeting at State House or wherever, the interest of the Kenyan people must take precedent. And when that therefore happens, we are out here. We know what they want us to do. We have to protect them. And you cannot, under the rule of money or fiscal policy, overtax the current generation so that the future generation can have some lavish life. And in retrospect, therefore, you cannot have a lavish life today that will hence be passed to the future generation to shoulder. That is not how fiscal policies operate. So what we are saying is that, yes, let's wait, scrap it off, and then we can retreat to now look at it in depth.
Okay.
Brenda.
Honorable Kelo, let's just listen to what your counterpart, Caleb Kositanye, a member of parliament, has to say about your sentiments. And Mheshimiwa, if you can hear me clearly, you've heard what Honorable Jared has said, that Jubilee is being whipped. There is a parliamentary group to support the president's proposal at the expense of the common mwananchi.
Well, I don't think that is the point, and I don't know where he's getting that information from. We know as a Jubilee members of parliament, we shall have our PG meeting tomorrow, where the president will tell us his views and give us his suggestions. And we shall engage in a meaningful discussion and come up with what is good for Kenyans. We are the representatives of the people, and whatever decisions we make in Parliament and in any of our engagements is based on what is the best for the people who voted for us. So I'm sure we'll come up with a solution that is good for this country, cushion our citizens from too much burden, and eventually also look for long-term solutions, because the problem we have are many. The amount of money we are spending is more than we are collecting. So we really need to be prudent in our spending. And I think we need to have swallow the bitter pill and look for long-term solutions, which would be very painful for others, but eventually we'll have to move forward as a nation.
Okay, you are ready to support President Uhuru Kenyatta despite what you're saying as it will be a painful pill. Let me just read for you some of the cuts. Treasury is set to cut 5 billion shillings from allocations to the National Assembly and Senate, with another 6 billion shillings to be asked from the government's CDF. Are you in support of that? Your budget, the budget of the National Assembly reducing by 5 billion shillings and that of the CDF by 6 billion shillings.
I am not in support of that, and that is why I'm saying we're going to have a meaningful engagement. What we can do, because the president will give his suggestions and we will also give our suggestions. Like personally, I feel that among the agenda, the 4 agendas, if there is one that is overburdening in terms of finances, and we cannot stop ongoing projects, we cannot reduce CDF because those are ongoing projects. Those are the feeling. The one need to get a feeling of government subsidy in their development projects when they see CDF performance. So I believe that of the 4 agendas, we will need to look at which one is a burden financially, and we can actually scale it down so that we are able to move on with all the other activities that have been moving on. But let us not scale down ongoing projects.
Okay, but Mheshimiwa, you know, it perplexes Kenyans because at one point you're saying you support the 8% tax reduction from 16 to 8%. But on the other hand, when it comes to the cuts, members of parliament are not ready to have their money reduced, and yet we are trying to raise a deficit of 70 billion.
Are not ready to have their money reduced. Which money is ours? CDF money, it goes to the wananchi. That is Kenyan taxpayers' money. We use it to build schools. None of that money goes into our pocket. It is used for development in our constituencies.
Mheshimiwa, we put aside the 6%, the 6 billion shillings cut on CDF. Let's look at the 5 billion shillings cut on the National Assembly and the Senate.
Yes.
Why are you not ready to have that cut?
Because these benchmarking activities that we undergo are very good for us. We come and translate whatever we have learned and seen out there into development and guiding our people on how we should move forward as a nation and in our constituencies. And I think it is something that needs to move on. I mean, I don't see any issue with that. But what I'm saying is this: let us not stop the ongoing projects and at the expense of the projects that have not been tested. So let us look at which of these projects is consuming a lot of money and they haven't kicked off, then we cut down, we scale down on that.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable Caleb Kositany, Member of Parliament for Soy, just trying to explain to us about the division amongst Member of Parliament when it comes to President Uhuru Kenyatta's proposal. He was speaking to us via way of phone, but right now I'd like us to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we shall continue having this conversation with Nyando Member of Parliament Jared Okello concerning this controversial 16% and the proposals that President Uhuru Kenyatta had on Friday when he rejected the bill on Thursday night and returned it back to Parliament. So it is a discussion that we shall continue having here on KTN News Center.